Welcome everybody to our weekly webinar on where to put a practice. Now, a couple of things that I want you to be aware of. There are a lot of trends right now that are shifting significantly. And here's what's weird. Some states are going crazy. Some states are really not. And what's odd about that is a lot of doctors will say, Scott, where should we practice? What's going on? Help us figure out, where the fertile ground is. And I'm going to tell you, some places are doing extremely well. Other places are, as we refer to, they're death on a stick. Now, that's not usually the nicest way to refer to it, but it's still true anyway. So I'm going to just tell you one real quick reason why I'm grateful to have Mike on my team. Mike has learned a tremendous amount already about demographic character and the professions, and is done spectacularly well. But he also has a background in understanding real estate and marketing. And those two different skill sets are rather unique. And I just have to tell you, I'm very grateful to have Mike as a resource, not only to, the good doctors who we talk to, but also to me. So he's been pretty sharp about this. And look at his manly arms right now. That's a man who knows how to work outside.
Seriously, it's
raising
true.
Animals. And
You should see my hands.
Are they pretty thrashed?
Yeah.
You do not have doctor hands, Mike.
I do not. No, I do not.
All right. Now here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, this is a repeat of a topic, but I've had to redevelop it. And that is this. A lot of people are trying to say, should I put the practice in a retail space? And there are a lot of good reasons to do it. Or should I put the practice in a professional center? Like, one of those Pill Hill places where you can get a condo, or get some kind of a thing you can own fairly inexpensively in an area with other doctors. What we're finding is the rules have changed a lot because of the corona pandemic, because what people want to do isn't what they used to want to do. And so it used to be that there was an obvious answer as to what type of location you ought to be looking for. And some of those things are changing. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to jump into this with both feet. I hope you are all aware that it is within the nature of doctor demographics to stay ahead of the curve. We really are trying to let you know what the trends are, because almost none of them are staying the same. With that in mind, here's the thing. Is retail better, a professional plaza, or are there other options that you should be thinking about? Now, I'm going to actually go out on a limb on something and probably offend someone. It's not my intention, but you've got to know the truth. If I were a young female doctor and I had my own practice, whether or not I was working with a man or a woman as partner or associate, I'd probably want to work closer to home rather than further from home. And even though it's not going to be contained in the slides that are coming up, the amount of traffic that is flowing has increased dramatically in many places. So it takes so much longer to get from your home to the office and back again. And the amount of time having to be spent in the office is going up. With that, if you want to have a personal life, raise kids, have a spouse, that's tough. And I mentioned female doctors specifically because just because they're a doctor doesn't mean they don't still do everything else that female people, moms, wives, mothers do. And look, that is hard. So when you have a long commute, it's making things even crazier. And I'm seeing more and more stress with these wonderful female doctors that we're working with. All right, now what type of locations are most popular for professional practice? It is a moving target. This is a thing that is changing. And in some cities, it's changing quite dramatically. Now, there are 4 primary location types that I'm going to throw out. The first is what I call a lifestyle center. The second is a shopping center, a professional plaza, and then the fourth are other options. Now, a lifestyle center is a hybrid location, and they're becoming very, very popular, especially in cities that are growing quickly. They're primarily going to be suburban locations. Urban centers, lifestyle centers, are there, but they're more expensive to get into. So a lot of people are feeling priced out of going to that kind of office site. But let me describe a little bit about what I mean when we talk about a lifestyle center. Now, a lifestyle center obviously is going to have a professional office space. It is probably going to be among the more expensive places to put a practice, but there are lots of advantages. Not the least of which is this is where more people are moving than ever before into these lifestyle centers. They are often professional office spaces, and I mean doctor spaces. They'll also have retail spaces. So there's often a store, shopping, grocery store, big box store that is associated with it. But it also has a few other things. They're often very closely associated with major transportation arteries. So they try to put them within a mile of a major on or off ramp to an interstate freeway or a major regional transportation road. Uh, they're often placed strategically as part of a regional development plan. So a city wants to put in what they call a lifestyle center because the area around the lifestyle center becomes much more valuable. Now, the new lifestyle centers may have a movie theater associated with it, probably will have restaurants. They'll also have, like I mentioned, professional office space and other kinds of retail space. But it's kind of a place that you don't have to drive very far. And here's the thing, the new thing about lifestyle centers is you can walk everywhere. And that would mean walking to your office. Now, I'm not saying doctors, you have to live yourself in those areas, but it doesn't hurt. We're also finding that they have very good proximity to schools and to churches, places that people tend to do more stuff. Now, here's the thing. I bring up churches and some people roll their eyes and go, does anybody go to church anymore? The answer is yeah, they do. And if they're associated with a lifestyle center, those churches become even busier as a community center. They're doing double duty, and they're often finding themselves much busier during the midweek than they had before. The same thing about schools, and it's not just a single school. They'll have elementary, junior high, and high schools very close together, near coordinating with these lifestyle centers. Now, rising expenses make them pretty expensive to go to. All right, this is not a cheap place to go, but the return on the investment in a lifestyle center is making a lot of doctors who before were saying, I can't afford to put a practice there, rethink, because you're almost guaranteed patients because it's so convenient to be there. And it follows a little of the Del Webb pattern, which has been going on since the 1970s and 80s. All right, now let's talk about shopping centers. They're a little different. It used to be covered malls, what people are referring to as a shopping center. There are relatively few of these now. But here's the thing, they have very good parking. And if you have any kind of a commute, having a shopping center near your office is becoming exceptionally important. They're magnets for potential patients because people can easily say, that's my place, that's what I want. And so the data is showing us shopping centers are doing well. Now, they're not truly that different from a lifestyle center, except a lifestyle center is also got more housing and more office space. As I mentioned, shopping centers can be kind of expensive because you pay on a retail basis. Professional practices are paying square footage like everybody else. But if you're trying to compete with a big box store that is turning over a lot, and when I say turning over, I mean a lot of cars come in, a lot of shoppers come in and go, that's a major advantage for you, but the expense is not small. It's also true, believe it or not, that crime is higher in shopping centers right now. That means you can get robbed or have things stolen out of your car, and that shows up as a bad thing, obviously. But that's the downside. But almost all of the shopping centers right now are increasing the presence of armed patrols. In fact, right now, I haven't seen one shopping center that we've placed a practice in that hasn't had on their selling points, we have better security than we used to. Now let's talk about professional plazas. And this might have the name of medical center, dental center, or whatever. And the reason to have one of these is because they're more economical. You can customize these buildings and often you can own them, and that is really helpful. It just means that medical and dental practices are requiring more equipment, more computer connections, better internet access. And so there's more stuff in them than there used to be. It used to be just a box that would appear with other doctors. Well, it's not so much like that anymore. They're offering ancillary services to healthcare practices. For instance, the delivery of gas, nitrous, oxygen, whatever you might need, uh, contaminated waste, bio waste. They're setting these up, and it's becoming a little better, more economical. The proximity to business and residence is also something that we're seeing more and more of. Used to be they'd put a professional plaza out in the middle of nowhere and say, it's all good. The developer didn't much care. That's all changing. And as I mentioned, the security around these professional plazas is better because it's more cost effective when you're sharing a security system where you have armed patrols and have very good cameras to monitor who comes in and out of the plaza. You're not out there all by yourself. Now, there are the standard other options that everybody knows about. Standalone buildings, office condos, for example, but they are recognized as having their own roof, because if you're writing a lease, you have to take into account, the triple net, quadruple net agreements that are over the idea how much the building is costing. Now, I don't want to pretend that I'm a guy who knows all about lease spaces. I've got my friend Norm Gelfand and others who really are the smart ones on this stuff, but they are becoming a little modified. Now, here's what I'm finding also, especially in locations that are not showing significant growth and where the price of office space is becoming more expensive. These are developing from homes, repurposed office buildings that are now professional practices. And there's a demand for this, particularly in urban areas that are not super densely populated. But I'm seeing them in rural areas as well, as I haven't seen them before. It used to be in the rural areas, it was just a converted home or, the doctor who sold the practice to you. But almost everybody is including upgrades in the properties in a way I haven't. Now, these are the four primary options that I'm seeing. There's another thing that I'm calling the pocket condo, which is a small professional space that may not have all the amenities that you'd find in other offices, but it's really a place just to do treatment, not business. So you wouldn't have your accountant or you wouldn't have all your records in the office. You want to keep that in another facility and probably have it all digitized. So these are just the four big things that I'm seeing changing. Now, I want to talk to you about transportation because this is being a big, big deal. A lot of people thought private vehicle was a thing of the past. Actually, what we're saying is the opposite. Recent trends that we're seeing, because gasoline is less expensive than ever before, private vehicle use has gone up. Electrical vehicles have now gone up, and they're private vehicles. And we're seeing that as a trend where people don't want to have to depend on mass transportation. But the other thing is people are demanding parking close to the office. Everybody has always liked it, but I'm just going to tell you, having parking close to the office is becoming the gold standard on what is a good place to put a practice. Is it worth the money that it costs? Yeah, I think it truly is worth the money in most cases. Now, mass transit ridership is on the decline. So it used to be that people would say, I'm right on this bus line, or you can Uber or take a shared ride place over to the office. That's becoming less popular. Mass transit ridership overall, sharing a vehicle, is on the decline. Nobody wants to get on a subway anymore. Buses and light rail are not winning popularity. But here's the thing I want you to understand. City planners are still screaming how wonderful they are, and it's the future. And that's why you got to be here. And you know something we're finding? That isn't so true anymore. All right. So I'm saying uh, mass transit, I don't want to say it's dead, but it is certainly looking very sick. And when they were trying to tell people this is the future and what's going to happen, I'm not seeing it. And this goes for almost every kind of demographic resource that I'm finding. So just be aware of that. The cost efficiency is rising in importance for putting in dedicated transportation. Now, a subway is the most expensive mass transportation that's available. You got to have rails, you got to have right of way. Insurance costs are very high, and the cost of running one of these things is going really high. Cost efficiency, therefore, means instead of rail, they're going to put in dedicated bus lines. In other words, a private lane for that. But those are taking a second back seat to when they're having expanded dedicated lanes. I in a previous episode, I think I had what I called a pretty interesting thing. It was what we call the transportation fast. The transportation fast meant cities were eliminating lanes of traffic, thinking, "Oh, look how earth-friendly we are, and pollution goes down." But it just means it takes longer to get from one part of a city to another, and it was wreaking havoc with professional practices. So look, let's say you say, "Scott, how good is this location? Mike, tell me what's going on." We would have to talk about the cost efficiency and talk about mass transit now, where before we just kind of assumed it wasn't that big a deal. It's that big a deal. Now, there are some issues that I want you to understand about where to put a practice in the new paradigms that we're putting out. And one is convenience is king. And I mentioned the isochrone. Now, for the smart ones out there, an isochrone is a time distance measurement. How long does it take to get from point A to point B? From the freeway off ramp to your office, from your office to their home. The definition of convenience is changing. And with that in mind, we have to look at how long it takes to get from people's homes and offices to your office. That is more important now than ever before. So a lot of our competitors are very big into telling you, "Oh, there's so many competitors in this area." Fine, I got it. But what may be more important is how long it takes to get from one point to another. And almost nobody is talking about isochrones or time distance measurements. We do. All right. Now, there's also kind of a funny thing that happened with the coronavirus, and this is what everybody's talking about with the future. There is a reason why people are moving to the suburbs, and that is because if they have to go and lock down again, they don't want to be in a little dinky apartment that they cannot get out of. Those are the last types of cities that are opening, those that are densely populated and urban. Therefore, having a place where you have a backyard or a store that you can walk to or easily have food delivered to you, that is now really what you want. It used to be that people would say, "I have to be very close to shopping centers." Well, because we have home shopping and delivery has been so ubiquitous that now proximity to shopping from your home or office is not nearly as favorable as it used to be. Now you may say, "Well, Scott, I thought you were telling me that shopping centers are favorable." I am, but it's favorable because they're close to people's homes and offices. It's not the idea that now there are stores that we can shop at. Isn't that great? Well, it's great, but it's the convenience that people have that is really pushing the trend. Accessibility and visibility have always been important. And guys, if you're talking about having your office finding the ideal place, making sure that it's accessible to their home, even more than to their offices, and that it's visible when they're commuting between home and office, that makes your office so much more valuable, and it's worth a premium. That's why a visible professional practice office is significantly a better buy than what you've ever seen before, regardless of how little competition there might be. Remember, for a long time, people were saying, oh, look, if there's competitors, I don't want to go there, forget it. That's not as important as having a visible office, regardless of how many other offices there might be of your type. Also, something that's a little bit in play that I'm picking up, and that's the length of lease. Some people have believed that the shorter the lease, the better. And if you're a new practice, that may be true. If there is risk in the area, you want a short lease. However, if you've been there for a while, renegotiating your lease may be a good thing to do now because the lease rates are going down. I believe you have more leverage than you've ever had before. So, doctors, that's what I'm saying. The length of your lease is a big, important issue right now. Now, I know I'm trying to get through these sessions a little faster than I used to. I want to just share with you something. I'm getting a lot of people who are saying, Scott, I have 5 to 10 locations I want to look at. I want to know over here and over there, and I could do a demographic report for each one. And hey, I got kids in college. Why wouldn't I want to do that? But the reality is, of course, you'd be better off getting a telephone consult because we can cover several sites far away and talk about the relative desirability of those locations and demographics, psychographics, show you maps, and really go over competition. So guys, the telephone consultation is the thing I want to push right now. It's June, July, guys, now's the time to do those consults. Mike is involved in the consult process too, particularly in the area of marketing. Now, there are a lot of people out there who have not taken advantage of search engine optimization research and lifestyle research. So in other words, if you want to reach a lot of people inexpensively, you got to get Mike's help to work out the algorithms for what you want to say, who you want to say it to, and where you want to say it. That's what Mike's specialty really comes down to. He can bring your website alive. Can't you, Mike?
Yes, sir. I certainly can.
Man, he's got big muscly arms. So I'm just saying that research that he can do, it's more than simply saying, oh, we're going to put out a Facebook ad. He knows what kind to put out, how often to run it, to whom you should be focusing your attention. And I'm going to tell you something right now. It's my opinion that this market mastery course that he's running, and you can sign up for it on our website at Dr. Demographics. This is the thing that you ought to be thinking about because it is not super expensive, and the information is very specific to you.
And really, Scott, that is the absolute key. And that's the thing that they've got to realize, that frankly, every business owner needs to realize, whether you're, a doctor or you're a barber. I mean, you have to know your people. You have to know your customer.
Right.
And you're spending marketing dollars without understanding, having a deep, intimate understanding of the people that you're talking to, not just demographically, as important as that is, but maybe in a marketing conversation, psychographically, what gets them energized, what motivates them to buy, what do they get emotional about, what are their values, what are those things. And once you have those questions answered, then you can put together a marketing strategy. And that's really the biggest thing that I deal with when I have people call me up and say my practice is not functioning, and we dive into why. That's usually the main reason, is that their message does not match who lives around them. It may match what that doctor had in their head or who they wish lived around them, but it does not match who the community actually is. And that's why that piece is such a critical. For anybody that has gone through the marketing report process and had a conversation with me, you know how much value I put in that. And I don't do that for kicks and giggles. I do that because I've been doing this for 20 years. And I've seen how valuable understanding people's buying patterns are in the buying process, regardless of the business you're in. And so, yes, we have the marketing mastery course available. where we want to start a new group in the 1st of July. If you're interested in that, email me at mike@drdemographics.com. I'm happy to have a conversation with you about that to show if it's going to be something valid for you. But the other side of that is we have some tremendous marketing opportunities, both in the training and in the execution side. Scott had mentioned search engine optimization. That is one strategy that may or may not be right for you, but we'll have to have that conversation to find out. So again, go to our marketing tab within the on the website at drdemographics.com, or you can reach out to me personally at mike@drdemographics.com.
And just to emphasize one last little point, I have found that a lot of people have the idea that there's a one-size-fits-all strategy. If I just knew the secret of marketing, I'd get it. And you know what? That is a lie. You have to know who is in your area and what they want and what they're buying other than just you. That is why this is so crucial. So as a quick example, if all you have are postcards that you're selling, and that's all you want to promote to the doctors that you're working with, guys, that is not really going to help them. You got to know that some people are going to be discount oriented and some are going to hate the discounts. Some people are going to want to have something that's personalized and customized to them, and some don't. And what I'm saying is research tells you that. And that's why we put such emphasis upon psychography. If you don't know what psychographics are, it's Google it, you know.
So let me make one last plug.
Yeah.
If you go to the marketing training tab on the website, I have several whiteboard sessions where I have covered different topics that will deepen your understanding of psychographics, how to write an offer, how to deploy those things, how to help deploy your social media in a way that's actually effective. Find that on the website. Those are great little presentations. They don't cost you anything. Go ahead and watch those. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me.
Well, I've just found this is like grown-up marketing and grown-up research, you know. So anyway, that's what I'd like you to do too. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and cut it right there. Thank you so much for watching. Tell your friends and neighbors. And next week, we'll have another scintillating topic that will help make you rich and famous. Or, pardon me, more rich and more famous.
More famous, right?
All right, you guys. Thanks again. Talk to y'all later.